What if one moment of being mean could break everything you thought you knew about the person you were about to marry? Claire had been counting down the days until her wedding with Alexander, a very rich tech businessman who seemed to have everything all together. She'd fallen in love with his hard work, how generous he was toward her, and the way he made her laugh during their quiet evenings together. But as she sat across from him at Romano's, their favorite Italian restaurant where they'd shared their first date 3 years ago, she was about to see a side of him that would change everything. The soft lighting flickered across the white tablecloth, and the gentle sounds of other people eating created the perfect romantic feeling. Alexander had been stressed lately with a major business deal, but Claire thought this dinner would help him relax. She had no idea that in the next few minutes, she'd be forced to question whether she really knew the man she was planning to spend her life with. "Where are you watching from tonight?" Claire smoothed her navy dress and smiled as Alexander reached across the table to squeeze her hand. At 34, she'd learned to appreciate the simple moments of connection, especially with someone as driven as Alex. He was 42 with graying hair on the sides of his head that made him look distinguished, and tonight he seemed really focused on impressing her with talk of his latest business purchase. "The Portland deal should close next week," he said, his eyes lighting up the way they always did when he talked about business. "We're looking at a $40 million profit in the first 3 months alone." Claire nodded, though she'd always been more interested in the small non-profit she ran, helping seniors with technology, than in Alex's business empire. She'd met him when he donated computers to her program, and his kindness that day had started their romance. "That's wonderful, honey," she said, genuinely happy for his success. Mrs. Henderson from the center finally learned how to video call her granddaughter yesterday. "Those moments are worth more than any profit to me." Alex smiled, but she noticed his attention drift as their waitress walked over. Beth looked to be in her late 30s with tired eyes and a warm smile despite what had clearly been a long shift. Her uniform was slightly wrinkled, and she moved with the careful efficiency of someone who'd been on her feet for hours. "Good evening, folks," Beth said cheerfully. "Can I start you with some drinks tonight?" Alex barely looked up from his phone. "I'll have the Macallan 25 neat, and we need bread immediately. We've been waiting 5 minutes already." His tone was sharper than it needed to be, and Claire felt a small knot form in her stomach. They'd actually just sat down 3 minutes ago. Beth's smile faltered slightly. "Of course, sir. I'll get that bread right out. And for you, miss?" Claire ordered wine, offering Beth an apologetic smile. As the waitress walked away, Claire noticed Alex's jaw tighten as he scrolled through emails. "The Seattle team screwed up again," he muttered. "Sometimes I think I need to do everything myself." The romantic atmosphere Claire had hoped for was beginning to shift, and she couldn't shake the feeling that the evening was about to take an unexpected turn. When Beth returned with their drinks, her hands trembled slightly as she set down Alex's whiskey. A single drop splashed onto the clean white tablecloth, creating a dark spot that seemed to expand in the silence that followed. Claire watched Alex's face transform, his features hardening into an expression she'd never seen before. "Are you kidding me?" Alex's voice cut through the gentle restaurant chatter like a blade. "Do you have any idea how much this suit costs? Or how much I tip at places like this?" Other diners began to glance over, their conversations quieting as Alex's volume rose. "This is exactly the kind of incompetence that's ruining the service industry." Beth's face flushed red. "I'm so sorry, sir. Let me get something to clean that up right away. I can pay for the dry cleaning if—" "Pay for it?" Alex laughed harshly. "You probably make in a month what I spend on lunch. Just stay away from our table and send someone competent over here." His words struck Claire like physical blows. This wasn't the man who'd held her hand through her father's funeral, who'd surprised her elderly center clients with tablets for Christmas, who'd cried watching an old movie about a dog just last week. Beth's eyes filled with tears, but she maintained her professional composure. "I understand, sir. I'll send my manager over." As she walked away, Claire could see her shoulders shaking slightly. "Alex," Claire whispered, her heart racing. "That was completely unnecessary. She's just trying to do her job." He looked at her with surprise, as if he'd forgotten she was there. "Claire, you don't understand business. If you don't demand excellence, people walk all over you. I didn't get where I am by accepting mediocrity." He took a long sip of his whiskey, seemingly unbothered by the scene he'd created. But Claire understood something else entirely. She understood that the man she'd agreed to marry had just humiliated a hard-working woman for a minor accident, had crushed someone's dignity for the sake of his own ego. The engagement ring on her finger suddenly felt heavy, foreign. "If this moment touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up." As the manager approached their table with nervous apologies, Claire found herself thinking about her grandmother's words. You can tell everything about a person's character by how they treat people who can't do anything for them. She stared at Alex, wondering if she'd been blind to his true nature all along. The manager, a kind-faced man in his 50s, arrived at their table with lots of apologies. "Mr. Richardson, I'm so sorry about the incident. Beth is usually our most careful server, but she's been working double shifts because her daughter's in the hospital. I'll personally handle your table for the rest of the evening, and of course your meal is free." Claire felt her chest tighten. Beth had a sick child and was working extra shifts to pay for medical bills. Yet Alex had humiliated her publicly for a tiny accident. She watched him wave dismissively at the manager's explanation, and something inside her snapped. "Actually," Claire said, standing up abruptly, "we won't be staying." Alex looked up at her in confusion, his whiskey glass halfway to his lips. "Claire, what are you doing? Sit down." But Claire's mind was racing with memories she'd somehow overlooked. The way Alex had criticized the valet for taking too long with his car, how he'd complained loudly about the hotel maid who'd accidentally left a towel on the bathroom floor. She'd made excuses for him then, blamed it on stress, but now she saw a pattern that made her stomach turn. "I'm thinking about my father," she said quietly, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "He worked as a janitor for 30 years to put me through college. He cleaned offices for people like you, Alex. People who probably never even looked at him, never said thank you, never saw him as human." Tears welled in her eyes as she remembered her father's work-worn hands. His dignity despite the long hours and low pay. Alex stood too, his face flushing. "This is ridiculous, Claire. You're being emotional about nothing. It's just business. You demand quality or you get taken advantage of." "This isn't business," Claire said, her voice growing stronger. "This is how you treat people when you think nobody important is watching. This is who you really are." She looked around the restaurant, noticing how the other servers were giving their table a wide berth. How Beth was standing by the kitchen with her head down, probably fighting back tears. Have you ever faced something like this? Let us know in the comments. Claire reached into her purse and pulled out the small velvet box that held her engagement ring. The diamond caught the restaurant's soft lighting, sparkling like the tears she was trying not to shed. "I can't marry someone who thinks kindness is a weakness and that dignity is something you can buy and sell." The restaurant seemed to hold its breath as Claire opened the velvet box and gently placed her engagement ring inside. The 3-carat diamond that had once represented her future now felt like a symbol of everything she couldn't accept. Alex stared at her in shock, his face cycling through confusion, anger, and something that might have been fear. "Claire, you're overreacting," he said, his voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "We can talk about this at home. Don't make a scene." But Claire was already walking toward the kitchen area where Beth stood with her manager, her eyes red but her posture straight with quiet dignity. "Excuse me," Claire said softly to Beth. "I wanted to apologize for what happened at our table. No one deserves to be spoken to that way, especially when you're working so hard to take care of your family." She pulled out her wallet and handed Beth $200. "For your daughter. I hope she feels better soon." Beth's eyes widened with surprise and gratitude. "Oh, miss, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do," Claire said firmly. "Because kindness matters. Because dignity matters. Because you matter." She glanced back at Alex, who was standing by their table looking bewildered and angry. "And because some people need to remember that money doesn't make you better than anyone else." As Claire walked toward the exit, Alex caught up with her, grabbing her arm gently. "Claire, please. We've been together for 3 years. You're going to throw that away over some waitress you don't even know?" She turned to face him, and for a moment she saw a flicker of the man she'd fallen in love with. Vulnerable, uncertain, almost boyish in his confusion. "I'm not throwing us away over some waitress, Alex. I'm choosing not to marry someone who could be so cruel to another human being. If you can't see the difference, then I was never the right person for you anyway." The other diners watched as Claire walked out of Romanos alone, her heels clicking on the tile floor with determined rhythm. Behind her, Alex stood frozen, the weight of what had just happened beginning to settle over him like a cold fog. If you've been enjoying this story, subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales. Outside in the cool evening air, Claire took her first deep breath in what felt like hours, feeling both heartbroken and free at the same time. Sometimes the most important moments in life happen when you weren't looking for them at all. 3 months later, Claire sat in her office at the Senior Technology Center, helping 80-year-old Mr. Patterson set up his first email account. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, casting warm light across the room filled with donated computers, some of which had come from Alex's original donation years ago. It felt like a lifetime had passed since that night at Romano's, though the memory still made her heart ache sometimes. "I think I'm getting the hang of this," Mr. Patterson said proudly as he successfully sent his first message to his grandson in California. "Thank you for being so patient with me, dear." Claire smiled, remembering how her grandmother used to say that patience was just love in work clothes. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. After a moment's hesitation, she opened it and saw a photo that made her breath catch. It was Beth from the restaurant, smiling in a hospital room beside a little girl with bright eyes and a superhero cape over her hospital gown. The message read, "Emma is finally home. The surgery was successful, and she's doing wonderfully. I never got to properly thank you for your kindness that night. It meant more than you'll ever know. Beth." Claire felt tears spring to her eyes, the good kind that came from witnessing small miracles and human strength. She'd followed her instincts that night, choosing dignity over diamonds, and while the path had been painful, she knew it was right. That evening, as she locked up the center and headed to her car, she found a familiar figure waiting by the entrance. Alex looked different, humbler somehow, his expensive suit replaced by simple jeans and a button-down shirt. His eyes held a sadness she'd never seen before. "I've been coming here every day for 2 weeks, he said quietly. "Volunteering, teaching basic computer skills to seniors." He gestured toward the building. "Mrs. Chen taught me how to make her grandmother's soup recipe yesterday, and Mr. Rodriguez showed me pictures of his great-grandchildren. I never really listened to people before. Really listened." Claire studied his face, seeing genuine change in the lines around his eyes, in the way he held himself. "What made you start volunteering here?" "You did," he said simply. "That night, you showed me who I'd become, and I didn't like what I saw. I can't undo the way I treated Beth, but I can try to be better. I can try to be the man you believed I could be when you first met me." Claire felt her heart soften, not with romantic love, but with something deeper. Respect for growth, for the courage it takes to truly change. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales like this one. Thank you for joining us on this journey of love, loss, and the beautiful possibility of becoming better than we were.